Hello and welcome to the Cronos Watcher Week 14 Sunday, the Better Double Check 10th of April weekly recap. I'm just going to get my calendar up here in front of me so we can discuss the last couple of days' events in some form of context. Here I have it, and we will jump straight over to Dex Greener as usual. Lots to talk about this week. As we said in our last video about MMF, had these two kind of double top signals here. So they were on the 5th of April and the 7th. So both of those days, a Tuesday and a Thursday, kind of in the middle of the week, had two sort of top signals. So I'll zoom in here for you, get it a bit more front and center, kind of deprioritize our MACD here for the moment. And you can see what I usually look for in these kind of inverted hammers, you might call them, obviously means that the volume was a lot of buy pressure at the start, and at some point during these daily candles, the pressure flipped and they were sold back down. So what that can tell us is that there's a lot of resistance at these higher points here at the 175, and you can see on the 7th of April made it to the 180 point. And then huge drop off after we mentioned it. I was thinking about cool off. I thought that these two top signals would show us some sort of a downside here, that we might hit maybe the kind of the 160 range a little better. Something like 170, 175 was pretty hot for the moment. So that cool down range was obviously totally in the works, was something we could definitely end up hitting. Sorry, I'm worrying about a bit of tech here next to me. Hopefully we'll be okay. Batteries. But this on the 8th of April, it was the Friday, we had a 16% drop after we were saying it, expecting it to have a bit of cool off, but a huge drop off of 16%. I suppose, are we seeing the fact that a lot of people are seeing the same signals? We get a touch off a high and we turn back down, and all of a sudden everyone wants to sell at the same time, and we have a 16% cool off, a lot of profits taken there. I'm trying to think. I don't know if we had other launches and etc. I know that we have a lot to talk about. We had the Pegasus token launch as well as the MAD token launch last week. It's like after really taking off. So I would imagine we're seeing some of the liquidity get sucked out of the system that way, but seeing an instant recovery here off the back of that. So on the 9th of April, we already had something around a 7% correction. Both of the candles looking slightly toppy, so it looks like there's continued profit taking at these points, even on a daily. So what we're expecting for the moment is some continued downside, possibly for Mad Meerkat. This was something I was kind of talking about over the past couple of weeks. Is where is our first major cool off? The way things were looking, we weren't going to see it soon. But just since this now, and I have opinions to share on some other stuff we might get to a bit later, but long story short, I'm thinking, had we a bit too much ecosystem pressure this week with a lot of launches, a lot of liquidity flowing around the ecosystem, and that maybe this has hit MMF a bit too hard, essentially. So what we'd imagine at the moment is that, as I say, we're going to see some continued downside just based on the candles we're seeing, the type of pressure we're seeing print. We're seeing a downtrend again in the volume. Other than that spike on the 8th of April, that 16% downturn, you can see a fully printed candle there with a very small wick at the bottom of it compared to the rest of it. So we had just a very little bit of buyback overall, and printing into the next candle then upwards. So you can see its support. Definitely there's a clear support for the token at these price ranges. There's clearly buying pressure happening at these prices, but at the same time the question is there enough to sustain this uptrend that we've been seeing? It has been very, very hot even since the Paddy's Day dip that we saw. That's what I'm kind of coining it as. Sorry, I'm searching for an indicator here. Meant to press my shift key. If we were to click into this, if it will go in for us, again, as we were always saying, there was something like a 30% move there in range overall, and it did move down that much percentage wise, but certainly that we fluctuated within that price in one huge dip. Now what I'm wondering for that is that are we kind of starting to print some form of a pattern for MMF in the way we behave, at least in our uptrend. One thing I'm thinking is that you've kind of seen something like this happen before. So back here, what did we have on the 16th of February? So around mid-February, we had, over the course of 2 days, with a 42% move on its value at the time downwards. And you can see then that in the next day, it printed back up at least kind of 26%. And then did a bit of struggling there for about a week, roughly. Let's just kind of measure that so you can tell, at least if you're just listening. So over the course of the next, let's say 10 days, 9 days at least anyway, there was a bit of ranging, some struggling, but you can see in the candles, if we were to zoom in over that course of time, there was definitely some support. Definitely some support there. You can see some sort of bottom looking candles. We have those actual hammers, where you can see this one in the middle where we had another big dip during that on the 24th of February, and it came all the way back up during the day, all the way back. So it went down to 53 cents ish, and it was already all the way back up at 58 cents closing. So clearly, even during the ranging, there was support here. And then we did another leg back up. So over the course, I suppose, of, what was that, 16 days, about 2 weeks, we had recovered already. We did another short down print, I suppose profit taking volume that had come in maybe over here on the 15th of February or after, and had maybe lost a certain amount of value, and we saw that liquidity leave potentially again around this time. But after that recovery, and then another short down dip into the 6th of March. So we're looking at mid to end of February and then start of March. We then printed another huge uptrend up to the middle of March, where we saw the massive fluctuation during the sort of middle end of March on the Paddy's Day. That would have been the 16th and the 17th candles you're looking at there. So again, a huge move. It was literally that to you now should read as massive print upwards to all-time highs, massive amount of profit taking, and then panic selling and profit taking all the way down to 80 cents. It shows the volatility, the potential here. I suppose what you're getting is cascade through both whales and normal, suppose small wallets, let's call them. Everyone moving at the same time, doing the same thing. So everyone's buying on the way in here, and it hits the top. A few large people, or there's some ecosystem narrative, but mostly few large wallets see the profit taking margin. They may have gotten in anywhere up to like kind of 40% of the price or so, and then all of a sudden they're taking profits at the 120 mark, and we move down to 80 cents. So that's the second time that happened. You can see here. So let's put them together for ourselves. If we took in the middle of February all the way down to the 17th of February, would have been 50% move. And then if we printed this Paddy's Day move that we had here, I wonder, is this something we'll always look back on, the Paddy's Day dip that we had of 2022? That was also a 33% move. And then if we look at the one we have had here, we're printing something very similar. It's a little less, 17%. So what I'm gathering potentially is that we're doing the same types of moves, the same types of cascades, but we're also taking a little longer to play them out. There is more liquidity locked in the platform, and there is less movement overall. So where we saw a 50% move and then a 30% move, now we're seeing a 20% move ish. All very rough estimates, of course. And you can see we did an increase in volume based on the ecosystem narrative up to here. And then we had that one massive spike where we have sold off. And overall, the volume has been kind of decreasing around that general. And you can see almost exactly the same narrative playing out each time. Like it doesn't look exactly the same because over each of the three moves, the volume is steadily increasing itself anyway. But very roughly, just visually looking at what we have in front of us here, you can see very similar pattern playing out. There's a increase in volume here up to some ecosystem narrative, and then a drop off. I really should go back and collate all of this now and start marking a chart with the events on it, and we can look at what caused moves over time and everything. Have one recorded chart with some text on it and all of that. I should do that, but all of that's on another screen on another laptop. I try to keep this clean for us, so we're looking at a nice clean chart every time. But you can see we had a massive sell event there after this first spike event, let's call it. So that would be the mid-Feb. Let's call this the mid-March, and then this is the April one so far. It's kind of like the 8th of April, I suppose, start of April. But you can see them kind of as three moves right now. At least they're sort of roughly the middle of February, takes a little longer to play out up to the end-ish of March. And then our next one is at the start of April. So we can also kind of see that maybe they're happening quicker as we move up, that we might see more down spikes like this, massive sell profit events, but that maybe they are for less percentages as there is more liquidity. As the platform gets bigger, there'll be less percentage down move, and then they will also take possibly longer to correct. So that is overall as well why I'm looking at us seeing a little bit more downside range, possibly looking at the 140 cents, 135 cents to me is fair game still at the moment. But that overall we might correct in a similar pattern to what we've seen before here. So I wonder, do we see some form of a semi-predictable pattern here? Of course, it's DeFi. We don't know. All of it could literally turn down tomorrow, but we wonder now, is there some form of a pattern starting to play out here? Something interesting to watch for MMF. So just to recap quickly, it's looking like we're going to be closing the week at around 157 cents. That is, of course, after we've seen a high of 185-ish. What was it exactly? Our overall high of the week, was 181. So we've now hit that mark. We've had some huge moves from the likes of the 3rd of April, moving from 157, closing at 171 cents. And today's massive event then on the 8th of April is our downturn of 16%, opening at 175 and closing at 146, unfortunately. So the last 2 days now have seen some printed uptrend for us, I suppose. Overall, we've got a percentage move of roughly 10% moving back to the upside. The reason I'm guessing for our bit of downside correction is, as we've seen some evidence for before, it has taken us a couple of days to correct from large sell events and large corrections. And based on that we might see some continued downside to the 145 cents or possibly even 135 cents range. Anywhere between those, the 145 to 35 could be fair game. As I said, that's just an opinion, and based on the percentage moves we've had before during the corrections and during our continued uptrend, then that we might see the same sort of patterns play out. Otherwise, we're simply looking to correct into the 160s, 165, and based on what MMF has done so far, the 175 and up, then looking to test into the 180 and be playing around those ranges towards the $2 mark is just as likely, basically just as likely. The only thing is we've had such a hot run of it so far, so much news, so much ecosystem narrative, that the downside, the cool-off, might take a little longer to play out, and that's what I'm guessing, again, based on the evidence we've seen before. Now, a lot of these events are based on narrative. They're based on people needing the liquidity for launches of things, or there being news somewhere else in the ecosystem. So their predictability is often just based on that, what actually happened at the time, which is why I'm saying we should lay some lines out and ecosystem events that happened so we have some evidence for all of this. But certainly, based on what we've seen so far, if there's any predictability, what it would be is that we see that little bit of downside and then continued upside here, as we have seen twice since the middle of February and the slightly towards the end of March, our Paddy's Day event. So interesting stuff for MMF here. I want to quickly cover the MMO token because it has continued its run. I might just take a quick second there. Typical. Trying to correct my audio in my headphones and nothing will load. But anyway, the MMO token has taken a serious run in the last while. You can see here in the last 4 to 5 days, some massive volatility at its top. We have finally hit off the $15 range. So you can see here yesterday on the 9th of April, opening at $12.59 and closing at $14.95, an 18% move. I presume it's simply ecosystem FOMO buying, pushing it literally up to that point that everyone doesn't want to miss out on the $15 range, and it hitting that and all of the previous liquidity taking profit. Sorry, I'm searching for an indicator again. Taking profit and moving the token all the way back down. Then the next day, today on the 10th of April, from $14.95 to $14.50, $14.47. It's looking like we might close. All of this, by the way, forgetting to say, a few hours away from closing, UTC at least. We're at 9:30 now. You can see 21:32 here in the UTC, so hopefully I get it up very quickly afterwards, and you're watching relatively close to that. So keep in mind there that we're looking to correct here off MMO. It's the Sunday evening as well. It's the end of the weekend. There would be a lot of potential for people to take profits before the week and switching off from crypto a bit. It tends to be a bit of a trend, I think, personally anyway. You kind of see that weekend volatility spikes up of the Friday evenings, serious volatility during the weekend, and profit taking on the Sunday. It might sound a bit silly, but watch this space. Those will be markers to watch for certain tokens as we progress on and the ecosystem gets bigger and we have more consumers particularly coming into the market, not necessarily DeFi degens who can watch everything every day 24/7, but working people who are busy during the week and do their DeFi at the weekends. It's a very important thing to keep an eye out for. Just something to note back here on the 6th of April. Let me get back to the calendar again, and of course my audio is loaded when I don't need it. So the 6th of April was a Wednesday. We had a big profit-taking chunk here off the $13 range. I am presuming myself that was after a spike up, failing to hit the $15 mark on the 4th of April, selling back down then to roughly $12.80. We opened up and had some volatility the next day on the 5th of April, with a high of 13.74 and a low of 12.84, closing eventually at 13.30 and then dropping straight off that mark. So again, like a massive spike up, a sell-off at the profit-taking margin, some volatility, wondering where the token is going to go the next day on the 5th of April, which would have been the Tuesday, and on the 6th, on the Wednesday of this week, then massive amount of profit-taking during the uncertainty after a spike up. We then recovered pretty much instantly, people seeing that as a profit-taking point afterwards on the Thursday the 7th, and we have seen continued upside then into the weekend. Again, the Friday sort of showing volatility, some profit-taking, and the Saturday giving us this move up from, what do we have, 12.59 and hitting again the close of 14.95, right on that $15 mark. Today giving us the $15 at some point at least, and selling all the way in between again, a low of 13.87 even, looking to close now at 14.53, down overall from the $15 mark, given the way things have trended at the moment, we may see some pretty sharp volatility as we did in the couple of days previously, but now we're looking to kind of settle within that $15 mark and continue upwards with the continued ecosystem narrative. Shouldn't see a huge amount of profit taking with the amount of TVL, the amount of liquidity locked within the platform. Again, it's a reward token, but with compounding rewards for continued staking in that. So a lot of the profit taking and buying we're seeing here is simply FOMO and fear, literally. And if we did have them, we don't have them here, I suppose, but maybe. Shout out to Screener. One day we'll have something similar to the fear and greed or the buy and sell indicators that we see elsewhere. All that this is those indicators swinging hard left to right between fear and greed in the course of hours, sometimes, not the mind in particular, obviously days. You can see literally red green type of thing playing out, but overall continued uptrend for MMO. Looking towards the next few days, we would expect some downtrend after profit taking off the $15 mark into the Monday and the Tuesday, imagining that the $14 and below down to the $13.50 would be fair game at the moment. What we're looking to find is some sort of a support range around the high $13 mark. If we can do that, bounce off it and look to test then again into the $15 mark, we'd be showing some continued signs of strength for the course of the week at the very least. So that's that for MMO. Then the MAD token, there's Discord shouting at me. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. But the MAD token, just waiting for it to load here. Discord using up my internet has seen a very, very serious run. So we have come all the way from our ICO ranges, let's call them, you know, the kind of the dip off after the launch price of kind of $3 to $4, I suppose, was it? Yeah, I mean, the let's call it the launch day closed its candle at 477, and then next day saw a bit of a spike and some fear, profit taking, all of this kind of thing. But after that, literally, except for this 2nd of April where it sold down from 860 to 708 cents, we've basically seen positive liquidity. It was a positive inflow. You know, there's been buy pressure all around for the MAD token. We have seen a massive amount of profit taking here off a high spike just today, opening at 1968 and looking like it'll close at 2067. But we've seen a massive amount of profit taking off this spike of 2480. You can see it almost hit the $25 mark. With a massive amount of FOMO buying in on the 9th, from $15 to 1968 yesterday. I presume that is off the back of continued spreading of news and information about the potential of the MAD token and how the MMA Mad Meerkat Arena is going to work. So that's a build up of kind of FOMO buying. I don't want to miss this price. Not only is it continuing to climb, but it is looking also like it will have serious utility. So MAD kind of unpredictable at the moment. It is hard to know where we see things eventually. Our market cap is already at 156 million, but you know what? It doesn't seem ridiculous or out of this world to see that still double in the meantime. I wonder. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a 300 million market cap for the, let's put it this way, the main token of the ecosystem that has reached 1 billion in TVL so quickly out of nothing, that have plans around, you know, their exchange traded fund, which we're going to go through, and so much liquidity on their decks, so much volume happening, so much inflow to Cronos from non-Cronos native wallets. All of those things add up to something that could potentially, still be maybe doubling in value. It's hard to know. It is really hard to know. Has everyone that possibly wants to stepped in now? Depends on how much liquidity incentives, how much farming opportunities and pools and things like this are there going to be around the MAD token. Have we seen some announcements like that I may have missed, that I should be keeping up with, but I've been distracted by other things in the ecosystem for the moment? It's hard to know. It's hard to know. For the moment, we would certainly, it looks like we're going to see some cool off the $20 range. But the only thing is, every time we say this with Mad Meerkat, except for recently calling that cool off there for the weekend, it seems to buck the trend. So would be very careful with this one at the very least. It's one where we really need to watch the news hard, watch Twitter hard when it comes to Mad Meerkat, and we will know more based only on that. But the $20 range showing us some very serious profit taking here, certainly 25 anyway. We've gone right down off the top of that. Usually when we see a move like this, we would expect continued downside, some corrections for the next couple of days. Normally I would say the $17.50 range or below was very much fair game to watch out for the $15 range, but just based on the ecosystem narrative, I would not be surprised if I'm proven wrong in thinking that. So the realistic case being the downside and the cool off, the hopium, and unfortunately what seems to be likely with Mad Meerkat all the time, bucking all of the trends and breaking all of the rules, is that we continue on our upside here. And break again into that $21, $22 range and look to retest the $25 mark and move below it, which would be very psychologically significant. If we were to test down again and come back to that, you can bet your bottom one that there's going to be continued uptrend after that. And obviously with all of those moves, we'll be seeing an increase in the market cap overall. So again, wondering where this ends up settling once we have a game released and all of the hype has happened around that. Definitely one to keep an eye on. SVN has had a pretty phenomenal week. They were announced as the launch token for MAD. So when that happened, you had to buy yourself some SVN, and you can see what happened off the back of that. So I think that was back on the 29th of March. And then into this week again, so on the 5th, the 4th and 5th, just absolutely meteoric runs up based on the announcement of I'm trying to collate my thoughts now because I'm mixing up what is what in the ecosystem. It's very easy to mix them up. But certainly we had the Pegasus dollar launch, but that is pegged to METF, and SVN was used as the token for that launch also. So it was essentially the launch pad for Pegasus dollar. And we have seen after its use that way, after that utility has been applied, massive cool off here of 46% correction of almost 50% in one day on the 8th of April. I did tweet out about this. So it was on the Friday. I suppose we opened at 350, and all you can say is that we basically sold down right down to 192. And I suppose that's after all of this news narrative had happened. The utility of the token essentially disappears again for the time being, at least. People are taking their money elsewhere, going back to where they were, or they're buying into other opportunities, etc. But for now, we don't need any more SVN type thing. So looking there yesterday to open up at 192 and tested up to a range of 218 but closed at 209. So sort of a toppy signal there, and we've had an even more toppy signal here today on the 10th, opening at 209 and looking like we're going to close at 217 with a high of 233. So we have moved up trend wise. We have not closed lower than yesterday and etc. that is a positive sign. But again, massive upwicks and profit taking off the back of them. So one to watch out for SVN here. I would expect that we're going to be ranging back down to the $2, and that's where we're going to look to find some very solid support and stay around. The hopium that we move above there and we continue on to the $2.50 mark. But given that it's a reward token and this massive volatility range has come out of announcements, news, ecosystem narrative, utility for the token in launch pads, we would definitely expect that if nothing like that is going to be continuing literally every day, then the correction downside is much more likely, basically. So we'll keep an eye on that for tomorrow and Tuesday when we actually check in. But for now, anyway, SVN definitely having a huge correction off such massive news over the course of the week. Trying to pick the words carefully now, if unfortunately you are amongst those who was to have bought in anywhere between those $2 and $3 ranges, that it was a very significant investment for you. The only hopium case is that utility like this will continue. The farming opportunities and etc. are very extensive. The token will always be a launchpad and be used as such for the ecosystem. So the bull case at the same time is exactly the same. The correction is not necessarily due to negative ecosystem news or anything like that. It is simply the news playing out. So again, this being the rumor, the use, the utility up into the launchpad and drop back down off it. The only thing I have been thinking, and we might skip MSHARE as a result, it has done a huge pump up. Obviously, the protocol making massive revenue off the back of the multiple launch pads that have been run. And you can see here, particularly on the 5th of April, which again was the Tuesday, it had opened at 16,000 and closed at 18,240. The next day, that was all it needed then to push up from the 18,000 mark and go right up to the 18,700. Then on the next day, we managed to where was our high? We managed to hit 19.3, a hugely, again, psychologically significant range. We had some fear, some profit taking off the back of that, possibly also some movement back into the SVN token of the ecosystem in order to engage with the launchpad. So that might be the cause of the little spike that you're seeing there on that candle. But the next day then opening up at 1875, 18,754. So these are all 18,000, I should say. You can see it up in the corner here to your right. 18,754 was our open, and 18,596, or no, sorry, 19,413 was our close. So again, like looking to touch those that $20,000 range, a very important range, very psychologically significant, did not manage to do so, and is now following the trend of the ecosystem after the news narrative has died down of turning back down with the SVN token. So here yesterday on the 9th, opening at 19,413 and closing at 18,790, looking to move back down today another 2%, from 18,790 to 18,465. Again, a very stable, slow movement for a share token with so much liquidity locked on the platform, but moving with the narrative that we've seen off the SVN token utility of some downside trend, after the news narrative seeming to drop off. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on the SVN SVN ecosystem and the MSHARE token for some downside at the moment. Certainly for MSHARE, looking to move back down possibly to the 18,000 range and test some bottoms there. Hopefully no lower than that, essentially. So I'm just checking my tech here. I think I'm actually very quiet, but we'll deal with it for this one for now. So I'm going to switch us over here. Give me 1 sec. So the Sky token, just waiting for it to load now. Again, so and I hadn't even noticed this move today. Very interesting. Are we looking at a daily? We are indeed. So today, opening at 115, so 1556, so $1,556, hitting a low of 1273, 1200, like $1,273, just to put that in context. So you can see here we got a massive downward spike today. Again, I'm sort of taking this news in as I see it now. So it moved down by 18 percentage points and all the way back up to what is it, 1528 at the moment. 1530. So I'm kind of taking this in as I do it. Sorry, I'm a bit slow there now, but you can see over the last week we had corrected off of our downside move, and I kind of shared this on Twitter. I was showing everyone something similar. You can see we were starting to look at a really significant downside trend here, especially by the time we had hit the 31st of March. Very significant downside candle there of almost 11%, 10.93. And the 31st, what was that? That was the Thursday the week before. And if we look at it here, we did a big correction on the 2nd of April. So that was last Saturday, I suppose, weekend again. People seeing this $1,200 range as a bargain on Sky. Again, $1,200, $1,200 range is a serious bargain for them. Moving all the way back up to the 1,500 range and then testing back down during the day. So again, that was during the weekend. The Sunday then showing us a toppy candle, toppy indicator, and selling off, opening at 1356 and closing at only 1383, but its high had been 1448. So you can see again on that 3rd of April there, this candle here, it had tried to test back up and then get sold back off again on the Sunday evening. And then moving into the Monday, we saw an 8% downturn from 1383 it opened to 1270 was its close. So very scary indicator there for the moment on Sky, and it was looking like it was starting to print a very solid downside pattern. And as we spread this, just a line, that's all we're looking at here, just to indicate trend at the very least. As we spread this out here, you can see it was very much printing at those tops again. On the 6th of April it had done the same, and on the 7th, also sort of the 8th, looking like it wasn't going to break the trend. The only indicator we would have had, though, some advantage, was that 2 days ago on the 8th of April, we opened at 1414, was it? Am I looking at that correctly? I am. We hit a low of 1360, but closed again at 1441. So you can see here, like we had a sell-off. So we opened at a certain price. We had a bit of a sell-off down to that range, but we closed above it. And that is usually a positive indicator that we have continued upside trend to look forward to. And then the next day, the 9th of April, we opened at 1441 and did a move to 1556. A very significant range because of the $1,500, and also moving back up and breaking out of that trend line we had seen. So today, a very interesting move. You can see that we must have had some sort of very large sell volume, and I'm wondering, is there something I'm missing? I suppose we had Cronos first mint today, and you know what? I'm pretty sure we had a lot of mints. There was 2 other mints today. Am I correct in saying, in NFT land? So I'm wondering, is that possibly affecting DeFi degenerate land over here? All of the liquidity being sucked out so we can buy our NFTs on the Cronos ecosystem. Perhaps I'll have to do a little bit of digging over the course of the week in Discord and etc. and trying to confirm that theory. But we certainly touched off the $1,200 range again in Sky today. So let's do this. Let's jump down to the 4-hour and try and have a look at where it happened. And you can see here back on our midnight candle, at least, we had opened at 1556 and closed at 1392. So that's very interesting. I suppose that would have been the US evening. It would have been the Aussie day, Sunday. That is interesting to me. I'm kind of taking this in as I go now. So normally I'd have some theories formulated here to share. Apologies. You can see we had a $1.5 million volume on that candle there alone. That's 1 4 hour candle that would have lasted, if for context. I know you know this, but just for context, from midnight until 4 in the morning on the next candle. But you can see here we recovered instantaneously from it. Opening at 1392 and closing at 1520. And the entire time that I'm communicating all of this, I'm trying to think, what exactly was that? Because even time wise, it doesn't seem to gel up with a lot of our mints and things like this that are going on. So I'll need to do some more confirmation there on that. But at least what this indicates is a huge amount of support, huge amount of support for Sky at these price ranges. Obviously, this being seen as quite a massive dip and very much an opportunity to buy back in by people. We had been seeing averaging downside on our volume here. You can see at the bottom of the chart that those candles were starting to print downwards, and this has been one of the more massive amounts of volume that we've had. What is our 24-hour indicator over here in Desk Screener is literally the hour you were in minus 24 and the amount of volume. So we've had 2.7 million in volume in the last 24 hours. And you can see that a lot of our largest volumes have been 1.9 there. If we go over back here to the 24th, which was at the top, we had 2.4. We also had 1.8 here on the 22nd. What do we have? 1.4 on the 21st. This is a huge amount of volume we've seen just in the last 24 hours as well. So a very interesting event there for Sky, showing a lot of support. I suppose it's a sort of a dangerous trip up, at least, something you'd rarely see in an established cryptocurrency to do any of these moves, of course, to move this fast by many percentage points. But certainly even for our little ecosystem here, it's a very interesting dip, sort of a la the moves we have been looking at in MMF. So are we looking at the same type of thing playing out now for Sky? Is Sky starting to be used as one of those sort of profit tokens? There's so much liquidity in there that is printing so much free money, essentially, that it's being sucked out in order to engage in other things in the ecosystem. The only thing I'll say about Sky is that there is the boardroom, there is the epochs involved there for which people would be staked for a certain amount of time. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what we're looking at. That I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly how long the epochs are, and the seniorage and etc. for the Sky token, that all being the amount of time for which you must remain staked in order to earn the rewards, and then there's penalties for when you unstake and etc. I wonder, are we looking at literally the difference between some profit taking off Sky token and then it being restaked / obviously FOMO buying and buying the dip and etc. Look, this as well pointing to the volatility that we were talking about that happens on the weekends. So we're looking at that's the 4 o'clock UTC candle on the 9th, which that's during the day, US. So I'm trying to think, is it possibly that there was profit taken from the mints and etc. over the weekend? maybe I'm not exactly sure. It's a bit of a that's a bit of an out there theory, and I'm obviously just taking it in and looking at it as I go. But extremely interesting move there from Sky, at least anyway. We won't try and figure out instantaneously, showing some massive support. As I was going to say, it's a massive trip up. Essentially, it's something to be very careful of. The moves that come afterwards, same time, may indicate a huge amount of support, and that we will see continued upside trend from Sky Otherwise, if we were to have some sort of if this was some sort of a dangerous trip event and we were to see continued downside of it, what we might want to watch for is sort of meeting that original trend line that we had drawn through here, very roughly. Of course, this is no measure, this is not a predictive indicator, anything like that, but just to watch it as a point. Because again, it seems to match up with that kind of $1,200 range if you were to stretch it out over time and down to the $1,000, but also that you could see here it literally sort of maps out what might happen if we were to have downside play out, downside trend. If we were to be above this trend line now but still be looking at the same downside move that we can't really see coming, only the ether knows, then that's kind of the line that it would essentially play out. So this move looking like a bit, it's one or the other, literally. I know that sounds like it's literally both cases, but usually something as huge as this is either an indicator to get the F out, something dangerous is going to happen, there's something on the way, or it's an indicator to get the F in because there was some sort of sell the news and it's been bought right back up because there is support for whatever is coming next. So one to watch out there for their Sky, and the ecosystem in general. Dark fan, most definitely. Dark crypto fan, have to declare it DYOR, not financial advice. But things like Dark Zero, very cool ideas to be involved in, and very happy to have it here as part of the Crow fam. NESS in the same ecosystem, the share token for the Darkness US dollar stablecoin, ranging as we were saying, not loading, ranging the entire time, the whole time we've been talking to it. You're trying to kind of analyze this. Look, it's a very quiet token in a relatively quiet stable coin platform right now. The biggest narrative it has around it is the dark crypto platform itself, i.e. the platform by which it was launched, is its main bolster, is its main bit of, I suppose, USP and the reason people would buy in. So NESS platform looking to benefit as well off the increase in attention around dark crypto. Of course, they're coming out with their gaming platform and stuff like that soon. It's actually released, the Dark Vegas. You can find it if you go to their Discord or go to the website and dig deep enough, and they have their eDark little fake gaming token and stuff there. All very interesting stuff, but what we're looking for is the Darkness share to benefit from that by the Darkness US dollar becoming a popular stable coin in the dark crypto ecosystem, which is itself becoming popular. That's basically what we're depending on. They have released the NESS room, so that's its staking opportunity. You can see we suffered here. I think the MAD token launch back on the 29th had a bit of a downside correction to 49, but after the announcement of the NESS room, did a nice big spike, corrected off the back of it for those, I suppose, who didn't want to stake. Shame. And then over the course of the week, I've literally just been ranging, as I said. Now that we have a lot of liquidity locked on the platform, I don't think it's directly displayed here, but I think in the NESS room at the moment, the last I saw, there was about 3.4 million in TVL, something like that. Excuse me, sorry. Okay, we're back. A little bit of an audio drop. So what we said, 3.3 million in TVL or so. So it's already quite successful without any massive amount of narrative or anything like that. It seems simply just support from Cronos and the people who are in dark crypto at the moment and stuff. So very stable at the moment. At least it's looking to be the NESS share token, and we can depend on a lot of the liquidity in the token starting to get locked up in the NESS room at the same time, which also has a week epoch. It's a week-long epoch, and I think 4 epochs lockup. So we can expect this price not to be too volatile, not unless it was used for a token launch or something like that, or because DUSD is a stable coin. there might be some incentives around NESS then to try and increase use of Darkness US dollar, the stablecoin itself. Maybe, literally. But that all of that is just hearsay. We don't know if anything like that is going to happen in the ecosystem. And again, I'm starting to become hesitant because I'm guessing, really. Essentially, this has its utility. It's working. It seems there's enough people using the Darkness US dollar. I haven't looked at the volume too much recently. I'm wondering, do we have it in the... We don't have it in the list, but we can certainly get it up really quick. Let's look at Darkness US dollar and get the 24-hour volume out of it. So it's only 300k, so it is pretty quiet, but it's still getting used. And we brought it up the other day. Sometimes it's becoming it's dropping in and out of peg. It's becoming a bit volatile, but that's most likely just large sell pressure, maybe bad actors and sandwiching or something like that, but that's not really likely, just given how much attention there is in the ecosystem, and it not being particularly useful to anyone really, unless they've got millions to be working with a percentage spike like that in a stablecoin. But that's an interesting one as well. Maybe something to find out from some on-chain analysts. And again, once we get better data from the Cronos blockchain itself, hopefully from the likes of those who created Chronoscan and everything, because we're relying on the Etherscan team and whoever they have put together to run Chronoscan to give us that stuff. So we got to get in touch there and be dragging a bit more out of them. But certainly anyway, that's the story for NESS, for the Dark Crypto platform. One thing I want to jump onto really quickly, and anybody who knows me, follows me, knows that I'm quite passionate about this at the moment. PES, this is the stable, or this is they're all getting mixed up in the head now. This token was launched during the week. Where is it here? You can see back in the 1st of April, essentially. We won't take anything from that. But PES is a algorithmically pegged token to METF. So the Meerkat Exchange Traded Fund. We're going to do a video on this tomorrow, so I'm starting to know a good bit about it. I think I may have, I have a page up in front of me here to do with it. So literally I can read it to you. The Mad Meerkat ETF is the first decentralized ETF protocol that runs on METF token. That's kind of useless. This explains that each METF token is backed by a basket of assets, e.g. MMF, METF, MMF, LP tokens, etc., etc. I believe there'll be other like stable coins and, well, at least I'm trying to think, large cap cryptos in there and stuff like that. And that is all managed in the METF AUM, assets under management, giving it an intrinsic value that it cannot fall below. So essentially they hold and manage and invest and move around a basket of assets whose value will surely accrue over time. And the METF token is essentially a representation of that. So I don't want to go into too much detail because it's for tomorrow's video. Sorry, we're having some audio issues. It's for tomorrow's video, but essentially it is the rainy day fund for the Mad Meerkat ecosystem. I like to call it the pension fund for the Mad Meerkat ecosystem. We're going to go through that tomorrow, at least. PES then is supposed to be at least algorithmically pegged to METF, and you can see here that it's at 9x above its peg. Now there's no reason it can't be a successful platform while it's above peg, and actually it means nothing. It just means that the token is just going to be minted for rewards, as was the plan. If the token is above peg, that's fine. The only thing I worry about is, especially even only after 6 or 7 days on the market, that there may still be people chasing the APRs and the likes available in MMO. that not realizing that, of course, we still have about a 9x move downwards to do in order to meet METF and to match it in price, which is the plan, which is what the algorithm will try to do. So right now, it's printing a load of supply to make the token less valuable and move it down to the same price as METF. Just something to be aware of, something we're going to keep a close eye on, see how the platform does, see how this plays out over time. What I think is interesting then is SPES, the share token, at the same time is very close in peg. It's only 1.5 METF. And I think that if everything goes to plan and all of these platforms are as successful as Mad Meerkat has shown us anything they do might be, that this token will actually end up much, much more valuable. So that it should accrue massively in time. It should accrue massive value. So what are we looking at here? The daily is very interesting. I have to zoom in so much after the ICO. Apologies for that. I haven't been using the desktop here. We use the laptop a lot for tracking this kind of stuff. So I just kind of load it up and it loads up all zoomed in on the daily. But you can see we did some massive spikes there during the ICO. But the share token, of course, having a fixed cap, a fixed value, it's going to be very sensitive to that during the ICO. Had our typical sell-off, as you might expect, and the launch of the MMO vaults and etc. has seemed to bolster a lot of that price action. So the share token, I'm guessing personally for the moment, is pretty undervalued. We expect some downside, expect some profit taking, boredom in the ecosystem after launch, etc. I mean, what do we have? Like 5 daily candles here. 2 of them really are the ICO, can kind of offset them. There's still ICO actions, so really only 4 days of price action, and it's, I suppose, upwards trend chasing APRs and APYs. Definitely expect this to be ranging and cooling off a bit. But again, personally think that this is possibly undervalued based on the rest of the ecosystem too. Not that the price is going to keep hurtling or anything that'll be a share token that'll be at a grand like Sky or anything like that necessarily, but that certainly PES is overvalued right now and SPES is undervalued, and that if everything is as successful as it has been with Mad Meerkat, then a share token of a Tomb Fork, essentially a platform, a seniorage platform, that in which the pegged token is massively overvalued and has some moving to do, will surely accrue in value with all of the volume, with all of the price action in the ecosystem. So that's the hot take. That's kind of the hot take for that one. I'm very much keeping an eye on this. I do think at the same time it's going to be a successful platform because METF is a very strong concept. This is an algorithmically pegged Tomb Fork that is going to be printing rewards based on supporting that ecosystem. Sort of a no-brainer for the moment. Sort of a no-brainer. Sorry, audio issues again. I might even have to edit this one. Crazy. How long have we been going? 1 hour. I suppose it is the weekly recap. You'll get your chapters at least. One, I wanted to jump in. I'll go to Cronos first, just to keep an eye. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a spike off the new website announcement and some changes to how the nodes were going to work and some features and etc., but we have definitely done a correction back off it. So we had a spike up there to 580, was it? About 580, 560. So the high on the day was yesterday on the 9th of April, was 560, and our low was 360. We closed at 393 there, and it looks like we'll be closing at 346 again today. So anywhere towards the $3 range now, looking to touch that, test it, and see what it does there. That's the fair game for me at the moment. Just personally don't expect to see CRN moving back up very fast anytime soon. It's just going to be continued sell pressure It seems to have some support at the same time. It's kind of looked at as the OG node project on Cronos at the same time. So the hopium being that we see that continued support by pressure and some announcements like the release of the hints that we saw at the new features and website. But for the moment, continued downside range, most certainly on CRN, kind of a a very, very predictable pattern playing out here of doing little spikes based on cooldowns of volatility or the announcement of news and then dropping off again. So that's what we're kind of going to expect, unfortunately, here for CRN, for Cronos, looking for $3 to be the next kind of major testing point to the downside. The hopium being that we touch the $4 again and move back up from there. But again, that to me is the hopium at the moment for CRN. So VSHARE here, we have a very interesting spike in the middle of this chart to look at from over the weekend. There was a Discord announcement and some tweets and etc. So a buy the rumor, sell the news event playing itself out here for VSHARE. But essentially they have been listed finally on VVS. It seems the two protocols are now looking to collaborate. They'll be not collaborate, but at least that VVS is certainly featuring VShare and is, I suppose, accepting it as part of the family in doing so. The team seems to have proven itself. It's stuck around. It's been doing its thing even after it suffered the massive kick in the face it got. You can see here it was correcting off its ICO and gaining TVL in popularity and sort of being the anti-VVS essentially. But all it was again, algorithmically pegged tomb fork at the same time. It got completely knocked off the pedestal by the MMT mint, I was trying to think. So this massive downside trend you see here, the first day is the MMT mint. It got sold back up, or got bought back up a little bit. Complete and utter fear and FOMO, dropped off the face of the map and continued to do so. Corrected a little after that during the middle of March, but has just seen some continued downside range. But if we zoom in here at the end on the VShare token, so again the revenue share token of this platform, which is it's printing algorithmically pegged VVS, which is called V3S. So it's very, very, very simple finance. A third V, that's the name of the platform. And this token is accruing the revenue from that. Sorry, losing my train of thought. During the week, they announced the fact that VShare would now be listed, that the two projects were working together finally, and that there would be extra news, etc. And it was a literal just massive spike up, 52% from 260 to, what did we have, closed at 397 on the 6th of April. We sold back down a little bit more on the 7th with a low of 286, but closed at 540. Sold off on the 8th of April, a little bit of profit taking from 540 to 460. And then the 9th and 10th over the course of this weekend, so the profit taking was the Friday. The course of this weekend then has showed a correction back up from those ranges. So we hit a low yesterday of 413 and a high of 488, closed the day out yesterday at 497. We moved from 497 to looking like a close of 545 at the moment. It's the Sunday. We may see it dip down off that again, some profit taking, but it seems that we're going to be locking liquidity from now on with VShare, that the token is gaining attention wider in the ecosystem. It already has some major listings. I think it's CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko listed already. So, all of the eyes on this as a algorithmically pegged, and it has reached peg and it's been doing very well at staying at peg for a lot of the other tokens that it has launched. It's basically after algorithmically pegging everything on the VVS platform. I think there's a V3 Tonic, there's a V3 Wrapped CRO, there's V3 Darkness US Dollar, there is What else? I think, is that all of them? Yeah, and then the V3S itself, which is VVS peg. So, and you can kind of earn all of those in various different opportunities, or LP them in various places on the platform itself. So, huge amount of earning incentives across the platform. The sustainability model is a question mark, of course, but they're documentation has become very interesting over the past while, and they have introduced some security funds, much like the METF or something like that. I think they call them Poseidon and Ariel. They're different backing and stability for the platform. So overall, really interesting. It's one we'll dig into again, one I'll kind of bully the devs, try and get more out of them about. But for the moment anyway, VShare certainly benefiting off the back of the news that it has had, and absolutely NFA, but I'm pretty sure that the Pacific farm, the LP farm, is printing fairly solidly 1.8% daily for the last while, for the good last while at least. So I think I'll leave you there with that for VShare at least. And just to run back over it, I think we'll cover Pegasus Dollar this week, because I want to cover METF tomorrow. We're going to have an METF video tomorrow. I'm swearing to myself. I've been studying on it the past 2 days over the weekend. And I must, of course, set us up a chart so that it loads default here. You can see this. It's a good example. It's a good example of what happens during an ICO. We had it sold up to, what was it, 943 grand? Is that it? Yeah, I think so. If it's the right amount of bloody zeros. Nope, I'm not sure. Is it? No, yeah, that's the 1 million mark. Exactly. Yeah. I think so. I kind of laughed to myself. It's too many zeros. The screen is too far away, and it is too late at night to tell exactly what this is. But I should be getting on with it anyway. Try and catch up with some of the jungle on Sunday night if I haven't missed it already. We would look over the Pegasus Dollar platform. Definitely cover METF tomorrow. This has been absolutely crazy. I definitely have some opinions to share. I feel bad for those of you who have been caught up in all of Let It Load, making arse of me. But here we go. And all of this, like, what? Absolutely what? And there's been a very recent article about METF answering a lot of this, because, of course, METF suffered the same volatility. Where is it here for us now? Did we not even go over the METF token the entire time? I suppose this will be part of the outro. What do we have? 106. I suppose I'm going mad now, because I know it's not going to fail after our last couple of attempts. So this is the METF token, and again, massive amount of volatility for people here. I do feel bad if that's what somebody has been in some of those ranges there. So we're going to cover this, talk about it all more during the week. But certainly that's been the excitement. Has been mainly Mad Meerkat to cap again. VShare having an uptick after some of its announcements. MSHARE struggling to hit that 20k mark. SVN doing some craziness off the back of being used as a launchpad token. MAD being launched and doing, what is it at this stage, 500% or something, all the way up to the $20 mark. You can see there it pushing through that 2150 range again as we're speaking. MMO continuing its run with some volatility over the last couple of days. Again, dark crypto doing very well. Just ranging within that 1500 for the Sky token, and we want to watch out for that and worry about it breaking through that downwards trend that it has had, setting a new upwards trend. The NESS token basically been boring as because the Darkness US dollar platform is not being used. too much yet, but I'm sure we can see changes to that, additions of utility, incentives to use Darkness US dollar as an actual currency, and then the Pegasus dollar launch, which again was part of the effect on SVN and everything. Very, very interesting week overall in the charts. Again, protocol video tomorrow, maybe a catch up, but do a lot of Twitter stuff at least. I will just do some screenshots and let you know what's happening out there. But for now, at least, thank you very much for checking in with the Cronos Watcher. I will talk to you tomorrow.